Hello and welcome to Catholic Answers Live. I am Cy Kellett, your host. So happy to be back here with you on a Monday, but it's a kind of a wild Monday. Boxes in the hallways and things getting packed up to be moved because this is the week of our annual Apologetics Conference coming up. We'll do the radio show from there on Thursday. It starts. So it's like a beehive of activity here, but we are ready to go and we'll be with you all week this week. It's just the first 3 days. We'll have to find our way through the boxes to get into the studio. Today, we've got Jimmy second hour. We'll do Ask Me Anything with Jimmy second hour. This hour, Steve Ray is here. We tried to have him last week, but had a technical problem, and it's always a delight to have Steve. You can find out everything that he's doing at CatholicConvert.com, the pilgrimages, the books, the media, all in the service of bringing people closer to Jesus, who Steve has been following since he was a teenager and turned his life over to Jesus. I love that story. Steve Ray, welcome.
Thank you, Cy. Good to be here with you. Yeah, actually, I was born in a Baptist family, but at 17, that's when I discovered Jesus for myself.
Yeah.
And I fell in love with him, and he introduced himself to me. And then then when I was 39, he said, now that you and I have had this great relationship, I think it's time you meet my family. And then I became a Catholic.
I love that. That is a great way of talking about it. And then you were put in charge of planning the family outings. So now you take the family all over the world, Steve.
Yeah, we do. We got a trip coming up to Poland. We're going to celebrate the Divine Mercy and the Chapel of the Divine Mercy with the sisters in Poland on Divine Mercy Sunday on EWTN television. It's going to be that really is a once in a lifetime to have. We got special tickets for our group. And then we're going to do the Saints and Shrines of France, Saints and Shrines of Italy for the Jubilee year next year, and we also have it's our 20th anniversary, Cy, of leading pilgrimages next year. Yeah. We did our first one in 2005. This is 2025. So we're doing a celebration. We're taking a Danube River cruise. We chartered the whole ship just for our group.
Wonderful. That's fantastic. Now, you know what, Steve, we're going to talk about Mary this hour. Yeah. And if folks have questions about the sorrows of Mary, that's what we're going to talk about. This month, September, we remember the 7 sorrows of Mary, but there are more sorrows of Mary as well, as we will talk about. If you'd like to talk about Mary, if you'd like to talk about how she walks with us in our sorrows and is quite capable of doing that because of those of her own life, if you'd like to talk about that walk with Mary, how do you walk through this life with her? 888-318-7884 is the number, 888-318-7884. But you said something, Steve, that before we move on to taking calls and all that, I want to ask you about Jubilee year. I think a lot of people don't even know that 2025 is a Jubilee year. And that's if you go to Rome, that's a big year in Rome.
It is. All the holy doors, like St. Peter's has a holy door that's sealed up all the time, except for the year of Jubilee. They open that and you get to go through the special Jubilee doors. All the major churches in Rome, like St. John Lateran and Mary Majors and Lateran, they'll all have the holy doors open only for the years of Jubilee, which only come every 25 or so years.
Yeah. So if you've been thinking about pilgrimage, 2025 is. I wonder if in Poland will there be holy doors anywhere? Will they have?
Yes, I think that they will in Poland too. That I don't know for a fact, but a year of Jubilee is not just in Rome. It's for the church.
All right. 888-318-7884 is the number. 888-318-7884. If you have questions about the 7 sorrows of Mary, about Mary sorrowing and why we would even attend to her sorrows. Isn't this just supposed to be all about joy now? You're welcome to call with your questions. Steve, what is this about the 7 sorrows of Our Lady?
Well, the 7 sorrows is a devotion that's gone for a long time. It's back in ancient times. And what it does is that it shows Mary the sorrows of her life. Like you said, you'd think that if Mary was going to say yes to God, yes, I'll do this for you, all of a sudden, everything is joyful. It's all happy and joy. It's like sometimes people come to Christ and they say, oh, now that I found Christ, I'm a new creature. Everything's going to be great and wonderful. I'm not going to have any problems anymore. I'm going to be joyful and rich and everything else. But, that's never been the promise of the Christian life. Even Jesus came and was an example and said it, unless you take up your cross and follow me, you're not worthy of me. There's sorrows in this life. There's joy in the next life, but we have to We're going to go through sorrowful times here. And so the sorrows of Mary is where we we meditate, we enter into those same things that she has. We join into those sorrows that she has. So.
And so the seven sorrows are what? What
Well,
are
the seven sorrows, there's, hold on, there's a crazy, I hate it when technology,
Oh,
just a second.
yeah, that's right. We are the champions of technical problems
Come
with
and turn
Steve Ray
Sonos
lately.
off.
888-318-7884 is the number. 888-318-7884. If you have questions about Mary, if you have questions about the sorrows of Mary, this month on the 15th is the feast day, but the whole month we celebrate the seven sorrows of Mary. We would love to hear from you. 888-318-7884. And certainly if this is new to you, if you have not heard about this and you want to ask Steve anything about it, you're welcome here. 888-318-7884. We straightened out?
Yeah, I got this new Sonos sound system, and all of a sudden it just turned on automatically. So from now on, I'm going to unplug it when I'm on your show. I'm going to unplug everything so
I didn't
that I don't
hear
get
it.
it.
I think your microphone was pretty selective. I didn't hear it, but
it was pretty. My wife ran in and shut it off for me. Anyway, the sorrows of Mary, yeah, it's where we kind of walk with her and we meditate on those things because they're very profound. It's like the Stations of the Cross. Why do we do that? Because we walk with Jesus and we meditate on it and we kind of enter into it and appreciate what he did for us. And we try to feel it with him and let the Spirit work in our lives to enter into that with him. And it's the same with Mary. So there's been a traditional seven sorrows of Mary and a devotion that people pray, and it's you pray along with Mary and you use a sacred imagination of what it was like for her. But I came up, Si, with 12 unknown sorrows of Mary that are different. These are additional. From all the time I've been in the Holy Land over 200 times and walking through Nazareth, and I've run from Nazareth to Cana and back. And so as I do that, I think about Mary and Jesus and the apostles and what it was like, what they would have experienced, and meditating on the scriptures and also knowing a bit about the culture and the land. And 2,000 years ago, I come up with 12 unknown sorrows of Mary. And I turned it into a talk, actually, that I give at conferences. But people say, what are you talking about, 12 unknown sorrows of Mary? But when I describe them, they go, oh yeah, that makes sense.
That's what I thought when I read them. And now I'm gonna have you tell us the 12 kind of unknown sorrows of Mary. But
okay,
just I want to ask you about this though. There's a connection between her sorrow and her compassion, and that this is I think there's something, God gave us Mary for a reason, and primarily, it seems to me, mothering. We need mothering. We need a compassionate mother, all of us. I mean, and we all have, many of us have wonderful mothers, but it's not about replacing our mother, but giving us that supernatural mother who can mother us in the life of grace.
And also a model. The Old Testament, you always look to Abraham as the model of faith. But Mary is our model of faith in the New Testament, that she said yes, even though she knew she was going to have all these sorrows. She was not oblivious to the fact, and she still said yes. And Mary didn't know everything. People think, well, she's immaculately conceived. She knew everything. No, she doesn't. Even at the loss of her son, she said, why have you caused your father and I such great distress? Why have you done this to your father and I? And said, Jesus explained to her, I have to be about my father's business. And Mary and Joseph did not understand what he said. Mm-hmm. They didn't even understand what their son was telling them, but she still treasured it in her heart. So God has given us Mary as a spiritual mother and also as an example. A mother feeds her children. She takes care of them. She even disciplines them. And Mary is a model of the church. The church is our mother. And so Mary is a type or picture even of the church taking care of us. And I have this great icon. It's carved out of a log. I've heard it's from 800 AD from Germany, and it was smuggled out during the Nazi times. A friend gave it to me. I have no idea what it's worth. It's huge. It's 5 feet long. But it's a picture of Jacob with his ladder. And he's holding his ladder, and there's Greek written on his, like on the side there. And on the other side is Mary with Jesus, and the angels are all around Mary. They're not around Jacob and the ladder. they're now around Mary and baby Jesus. And in the Greek, it says, "O great mother, O great ladder who brought God down to us." Mary's the ladder that brought God down to us. So not only is she our spiritual mother and our model, all these things, but she also was the one that God chose to bring his son into the world, which just, if anybody, when I was a Protestant, we didn't think, we didn't talk about Mary. That's Catholic stuff, Catholics talk about Mary. We don't. We kind of swung the pendulum to the other side, and we didn't even talk about her at all, because then somebody think we're going Catholic. But the fact is that Mary is so significant. Jesus got his DNA from her. He still has her genetic code. For 3 years they breastfeed, so he got all of his brain cells and his muscles and his bones all from her. And just think of, she's going to be his mother for all of eternity. It's in his physical form. So just think how special Mary is. She's our mother, but she's the mother of God. There's no way we can fathom her importance and the significance of Mary.
I'll tell you what, when we come back, let's get the 12 hidden sorrows of Mary, and then some calls for Steve Ray. If you'd like to get in the queue, there are a few lines open, 888-318-7884.
Catholic Answers Live.
Underwriting for Catholic Answers Live is provided by Real Estate for Life. Real Estate for Life connects homebuyers and sellers to real estate agents while supporting pro-life organizations. On the web at realestateforlife.org.
Underwriting for Catholic Answers Live is provided by Magnificat. Published monthly, Magnificat features texts of daily Mass, prayers, articles, meditations, art commentaries, and more, in step with the liturgical rhythm of the Church. On the web at magnificat.com.
Hi, this is Mike Aquilina with a few words about St. Monica. Her son Augustine is one of the most influential thinkers in human history. Monica was uneducated, yet Augustine called himself her disciple. She taught him good sense, and she prayed him back to the faith after 17 years away.
Welcome back. Catholic Answers Live. Steve Ray is our guest. Check out all that Steve Ray does. You can find it all in one location, CatholicConvert.com, CatholicConvert.com. And all the time people say to us, I always get this, like Steve Ray, I crossed the Tiber. It's like you patented that phrase or something. So if
that's funny.
If you're thinking about crossing the Tiber, that means coming into the Catholic Church. Then you can check out the materials. Steve's got lots of wonderful stuff for you at CatholicConvert.com. Right now, we're talking about Mary. And one of the of ways we honor Mary, and also I think grow close to her and remember that she is close to us, is to remember her sorrows. And Steve talked about the 7 sorrows of Mary. But Steve, before I go to the phones, and I do see the lines are starting to fill up, but could you just run us through the 12 unknown sorrows of Mary? Tell us about some of the sorrows of her life.
All right, the 7 sorrows the traditional people know, but I'll try to say them real quick and maybe give a nutshell of why they're a sorrow. The first one I say is a sorrow is the Annunciation, which is a joyful mystery. My wife and I just prayed that mystery before we came on the show today, but the reason is because when Mary said yes, she's going to be fingers pointing at her because she was not living with Joseph yet. She was betrothed, which means legally, contractually married, but she's not yet. There's 2 parts to marriage. So she is going to be without living with Joseph, people are going to point to her and says, Mary, you're pregnant. What happened? And it's going to become a scandal with pointing and gossip about her. And even Joseph was concerned about it. He didn't know what was going on until the angel came. So to say yes means I'm going to be willing to take all of the misunderstanding that's going to come along with this. And it did, by the way. And I give the evidence for that when I give my talks on this. The second unknown sorrow of Mary is going to Bethlehem, because on the right-hand side of the road is a tomb where her matriarch almost 1800 years earlier, Rachel died in childbirth and was buried on the side. She's going towards Bethlehem on the same road Mary is. She is also 9 months pregnant, Rachel is, gets off her camel, gives birth to the baby, and dies, and they bury her on the side of the road. And that tomb is still there. It's 4,000 years later. In my movies, I take you in there. So Mary looks over there and Joseph and said, "Oh, Lord, don't let that happen to me, what happened to Rachel." You know, she doesn't even have a place to live and give birth to the baby, and she sees that matriarch who died in her condition. People say, well, she didn't have to worry because that baby's special. Yes, but then why did God say, quickly, go to Egypt, flee, they're trying to kill the baby? Joseph was a protector, Mary. They had real fears and real dangers in their life, and so that's the second unknown sorrow. A third one is, people don't think about this, but the slaughter of the innocents. Mary is very pro-life, and to think that those babies were killed. Why were they killed? Because of her son. Mm-hmm. And when she comes back from Egypt and she's carrying her baby, and all those other mothers that had their little boys killed, they're going to say, you have your baby still. Ours were killed because of your baby. And those are martyrs of a different kind. Other people are martyrs for Jesus. These were martyrs in the place of Jesus.
Oh my
They
goodness.
were killed in his place.
Right.
So that was a sorrow for Mary to know about all of that. Another sorrow was the death of her husband Joseph. We don't know when or how, but sometime between Jesus being 12 years old and Jesus being 30, Joseph's not mentioned anymore, and it's always been the tradition that he died in that period of time. Well, just think her love of her life, the partner she has, the one that's helping her raise her son. Now she's raising her son on her own, and she had to bury Joseph. And obviously another sorrow. The fifth one is the wedding of Cana, which is a luminous mystery. It's a joyful thing. Jesus turns water into wine. He proves he's the Messiah and all these joyful things from that. But also when she said to him, do whatever he tells you, I think she had tears in her eyes, because he said, it's not time to start my earthly ministry yet. And she said, yes, it is. She's the one that told him when to start his ministry against his own wishes. But she didn't tell him that. She said, they have no wine. And he says, what does it have to do with you and me? She ignores him. She just goes over to the servants and says, do whatever he tells you. And she left the room. But I think she had tears in her eyes, because when she said, do whatever he tells you, it was another way of saying goodbye.
Yep. Right.
Because now you're going to go out and serve your heavenly Father.
Right.
You're not going to be coming home with me every night to have dinner and to pray prayers at night. I'm going to, in a way, lose you now. Now you're going to leave me to go serve your heavenly Father. And she gave him away to us. And she walked away with tears in her eyes. And she knew when he did that miracle, it was going to start the clock ticking towards Calvary. Tick, tick, tick. It started the clock. So that's the wedding of Cana. Then the sixth one is, remember when Jesus stood up in the synagogue in Nazareth and read from Isaiah and said, these words have been fulfilled in your hearing. In other words, I'm the Messiah. And they're incensed, they're angry, and they take him out, try to throw him off the cliff. This is a small town of 250 people. Jesus has lived there his whole life. He's 30 years old now. And Mary is living there. They're friends with all these people. They're relatives.
Yeah.
And it's a close-knit neighborhood, and now they're trying to kill her son. Just say, how are they going to relate Mary and the other women when they all walk to the well to get water the next morning? She looks at them and said, you tried to kill my son. You betrayed us. Mm-hmm. After all we've done for you, our relationship, you tried to kill my son yesterday. Don't think that wasn't a sorrowful thing, because she has to get up and face them all the next morning. Then we have the seventh is that in Mark chapter 3, it says that Mary and the family heard that Jesus had gone insane. He'd lost his mind. He's demented. That's the Greek word. So Mary, she rushes down. It's a day's walk from Nazareth down to Capernaum. And she can't even reach her son because he's surrounded by people, and he's not eating and he's not drinking and he's not taking care of himself because he's pouring himself out for these thousands of people around him, even among Gentiles, touching lepers. He's gone crazy. He's not even sleeping, and she can't even get to him. That's another sorrow. That's sorrow number 7. We're almost there. Sorrow number 8 is Jesus' ascension into heaven, a glorious mystery, but also a sorrowful one, because that's the body. Jesus is a physical body, and she's saying goodbye to him in his earthly form. That's her son. She's lived with him for 33 years. She's raised him from a little boy. And now, it's a wonderful thing. He's going back to be with his father, but she's watching the hands the knees that she patched when he was little and fell down. She's hugged him so many times, nursed him, and now he's leaving and going. And she watches him go up into heaven. She has to say goodbye to her son, and I think she had tears in her eyes. Any mother would, to know that's the last time she's going to, in the flesh, see her son. Now, there's the next one is moving from Nazareth because of the crucifixion. This is your mother.
right.
This is your son. So she now leaves her own house. It's a cave, her own domicile there where she's in charge in Nazareth with a small town. She goes now into the big megatropolis of Capernaum, in the big city down there. And she's now moved in with other people. Peter and Andrew are next door, and James and John live together. So here she is now living in someone else's home. She's not in charge anymore. And she has to leave the village that she's been in ever since she was a young girl. Now she's down in the big city and she's living in someone else's home. And then we go to the 10th is she had, let's see, no, I think I missed one. Oh yes. And also in Acts chapter 12, it says James was beheaded, the apostle James. Well, who's James? He's John's brother. John is the one taking care of Mary. It says that Mary moved into John's house with him. Well, guess what? John and James would have lived together. They had extended family. So she had John as a son, but James would have also been a son to her. She lived with both of those apostles. And then she hears in Acts chapter 12 that he's been killed with the sword. That's like an adopted son of yours who's just been assassinated and killed. So now we go to the 10th, and we're almost done. She moves away to go to Ephesus with John the apostle. He became the bishop of Ephesus, and she had to move away and go to that pagan city and away from the land she loved and her own Jewish people that she lived with there. And the journey was over 1,000 miles, and it would have been a horrendous traveling because you would have walked over that 1,000 miles. Or if they went on a ship across the Mediterranean, you had to rent. It's not like the kind of cruises we take, the Catholic Answers, I mean, where you have beautiful cabins. You had to rent space on the deck because the ships were for carrying grain and cargo. You rented space on the ship and you lived on the deck. You didn't have a cabin. So that would have been, just think of going to the bathroom when you don't have toilets. You're on a ship. This is Mary's experience, another sorrow.
Whoa.
Well, now that's, and then number 11 is her own death. John Paul II said that the way he said it was, I got to hear. But anyway, Mary chose to die to relate to her son and to all of us. And John Paul II is very clear that he taught that Mary did die by her own choice, it's not obligatory. But here, death is separation of body and soul, and so there she dies, and then she's raised body and soul back up again. But she had to go through that cloud of death herself, which was something. The human body was not made for death. We were supposed to be immortal. So she facing that death and burial. There's a tomb of Mary in the Kidron Valley. We take groups there sometimes. But she was taken up body and soul from heaven, but she went through that. Now the 12th unknown sorrow of Mary, this one is kind of interesting. It's sorrow she still has today because she's in heaven. She should it's all joyful in heaven, but she is weeping in heaven because of the sins of the world and how her son is being offended and how the Eucharist is being offended. And there was a time where at the 3 children of Fatima, where Francisco, he said, didn't you notice how sad Our Lady was last month when she said that people must not offend our Lord anymore, for he is already very much offended? Did you not see how sad Our Lady was? So Mary still has sorrows today. She's sorrowful for the world and how it has rejected her son and the babies being killed, and that affects her even today as the Queen of Heaven. So those are the 12 unknown sorrows of Mary in a nutshell.
Thank you, Steve. 888-318-7884 is the number. And, I know that for many people who are not used to, many Christian people who are not used to close devotion to Mary, Steve is a perfect person to talk about that. Steve is a convert to the Catholic faith. He himself lived his Christian faith without that close connection to Mary. So if you would like to call and ask Steve about that, you are welcome to do so. I want to get to some of the folks who are on the line now, and we'll start with Liam in Alberta, Canada. Liam, welcome. Go ahead with your question for Steve Ray.
Hey.
Hi, Liam.
In some of the school masses I went, I'm I'm born and bred Catholic, left the faith, and then reverted not too long ago. I remember one of the hymns we played during the school mass was "Mary, Did You Know?" and I'm wondering, like, is that song accurate, or should I tackle the next partisan that tries to play it?
Well, you should probably. I'm going to go with don't tackle anybody, but you're going to have to wait through the break for your answer. The song "Mary, Did You Know?" We've all heard it sung, probably in the Christmas season, maybe on a Christmas Eve mass. Is that biblically accurate? We'll find out with Steve Ray right after this on Catholic Answers Live.
When it comes to Catholic teachings about Mary, there's one question we hear more than any other. Where is that in the Bible? The answer? Everywhere. In Bible Mary, the Mother of Jesus and the Word of God, Father John Weiss opens Scripture to reveal a Mary who has been hiding in plain sight. Order your copy of Bible Mary today at shop.catholic.com or ask for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
We hope that one of the things that we communicate here at Catholic Answers Live is that our Catholic faith allows us to be fully serious about all the problems we encounter in the church and in the world, but it also lets us have light hearts and maybe even mix in a bit of fun. And that is exactly what our good friend Joe Heschmeyer does in his popular podcast, Shameless Popery. You should check it out at shamelessjoe.com. Joe's got a deep grasp of the faith, of morals, the teachings of the church, all that, but he's also got a witty conversational style. He entertains and he informs, but you will leave equipped to better answer the most common challenges, misconceptions, and questions about the Catholic faith. He's got insightful guests, he does on-air debates, and he takes a close look into all the things that you want to know about as a Catholic living today. You'll walk away knowledgeable and filled with joy. Look for Joe on his YouTube channel. Check him out at shamelessjoe.com or wherever you get your podcasts. And if you like what you hear, become a patron.
Our Lord needs articulate defenders of the truth to spread the joy of the Catholic faith. Catholic Answers monthly giving club, Society 315, helps you fulfill the call in 1 Peter 3:15 to always be prepared to make a defense for the hope that is in you. For as little as $10 a month, you'll help Catholics grow in faith, bring lapsed Catholics home, and lead non-Catholics to the truth. Go to casociety315.com and join today.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. Liam in Alberta, Canada, reverts to the Catholic faith. Praise God for that, Liam. And wanted to know, is the song "Mary, Did You Know" biblically accurate? And during the break, Steve has been doing a close reading of the lyrics of "Mary, Did You Know?" So what do you think now that you have done a close reading of the lyrics?
Well, I just brought them up because I never really paid much attention to the song.
Okay.
And I just brought up the lyrics. I know no matter what I say about the song, I'm going to get 100 emails. I know there's people that hate it and think it's unbiblical and it's contrary to everything. But we don't know what Mary knew. I don't know what Mary knew. None of us do. The angel spoke to her at the Annunciation. I'm sure she talked to her son, but the angel didn't come back every day and have a cup of coffee with her and give her an update what's going to go on that day, not that we know of. So I don't know what Mary knew. Mary didn't know that Jesus was going to stay behind in the temple. She didn't know what he meant when he told her that he's going about serve his father's business. She didn't know what he meant by that. I don't think she knew when Simeon said that the sword's going to pierce your soul. You're also yours. I don't think she knew it. She a 15-year-old girl. So when it says, "Baby, did you know your baby to walk on water?" I don't know if Mary knew that. That's a legitimate question to me. But I think that when you have to look at the song, I wouldn't like it being sung at Mass, maybe around a Christmas party or something. But I think it's poetic. It's saying, "Of course you knew. Mary, did you know?" Of course she knew. It's just like if you said, "Steve, you're going to raise great kids someday." Well, I would have said, "Yeah, of course. My wife's a great mother. We're going to homeschool them, raise them to the Lord." And it's poetic. So I know there's people that hate this song. It's never bothered me that much.
What do you think, Liam?
Because
Well, I've seen a lot of Catholic memes on Reddit where the guy labeled Catholic goes to tackle the Protestant that's about to play it. So I know there's
that's a meme
about mothers always knowing what's going to happen to their children or what's happening.
Right. And let's just say this. Did you know you're going to give sight to the blind? If Mary knew Isaiah, which obviously she did, that the Messiah, the one who's coming, is going to make the blind see and the lame to walk. So did you know that was going to happen? Well, of course she knew that one. But it's a poetic song. It's actually praising Jesus for what he's doing and praising her. Wow, Mary, that's so amazing. Did you even know that was going to happen? How incredible that you brought a boy into this world. When you kiss your baby, you kiss the face of God. These are more, instead of a question like, Mary, you're stupid, you didn't know these things. It's more a poetic, I think, song of saying, do you realize? It's more like, I realize, Mary, that when you kissed your little baby, you kissed the face of God. So, I never got bent out of shape about it. I wouldn't like hearing, I don't think it's a song I'd like to hear played at Mass, that's for sure. But
you're not, it's not like blasphemous. It's not occurring to you like,
no,
this is some blasphemy. So. It just seems like a poetic way of
expressing the truth.
Yeah. What does that?
I think it honors Mary. I think it's honoring Mary. It depends on how you look at it.
Yeah. What do you think, Liam?
I know I'm going to hear about this.
And I actually have some other questions that aren't really related to Mary. I was wondering if I could still ask them.
Well, I'll tell you what. Let's try one, and because I don't want to keep everybody waiting that wants to talk about Mary, but you've been very gracious to us. So go ahead. Give Steve one.
Yeah, this question is unrelated to Mary. A while back, my little brother said that a priest came into his religion class, a Catholic priest, and said that if you have a close enough relationship with God, you don't need to go to confession. So I was wondering about that. Like, first off, how do you know if you have that kind of relationship with God?
If you're in heaven.
And two, if you have that kind of relationship, is confession to a priest still necessary?
All right, Steve, what do you say?
I have a great relationship with God, I think, but I go to confession every month. My wife and I make it practice, and I did when we had our kids. And I'd always go in first so they know that I was the chief sinner in the family. And the kids, they'd all say, well, Dad's going to confession, we can too. It is a law of the church. The church says that we need to go to confession once a year, if not more. It should be once a year. So if he says we don't need to go to confession, then he's wrong, because he's going contrary to the teaching and the law of the church. All of us, even if you only have venial sins, none of us are sinless. Confession takes care of sin. We are sinners. There's no way around it. And to say just because you have a good relationship with Jesus that you don't have to go to confession, is he saying that by having a good relationship with Jesus, I haven't sinned? If I have sinned, then I need to have my sins forgiven. Venial sins can be forgiven in the Mass and in prayer, but serious sin needs to be forgiven in the confessional. And we sin. We do sin. And even if we didn't, it's still a source of grace for us. I view the sacraments as like a big pipe coming out of heaven. And when you go and get in that sacrament, that grace comes roaring into you. When I go to confession, my wife, she's one. I have no idea what she confesses. I live with this girl 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And sometimes I ask her, what in the world are you going to be confessing today? Because I've been with you for the last month. I have no idea what you might be confessing. She's just wonderful. But she said, even if I didn't, I did sin. I've got sins to confess. But even if I didn't, I want the grace of God that comes through the sacrament. So the priest was wrong. That's Liam. He's wrong. I don't mind saying a priest is wrong when a priest is wrong.
Thanks, Liam. I hope that was helpful. We do Ask Me Anything a lot of days a week now. So call another time, Liam. If you've got questions, we'd love to get you an answer depending on who's on. You'll get their answer. The number here is 888-318-7884. We're talking Mary with Steve Ray. If you've got questions about Mary, you are ready to. You're welcome to call. And John is in Oklahoma listening to EWTN on channel 130, Sirius XM satellite radio. John, welcome. Go ahead with your question for Steve.
All right. Well, before Steve, I got a question for you, Si. We need a payroll update. Did we get that raise yet?
Well, I can't talk about my private things like my salary here, but no, John, we did not. All right? All right, go ahead.
I'm still praying. I'm going to do a week now.
That's just between you and me. I can't say that to anybody else. That's just between us.
My question is, what does it mean to be consecrated to Mary? What's the process, and what's the significance of doing it?
First of all, I'm not an expert on that or the consecration to Joseph or Mary, but what I know, the word consecrated means, we'll start at the basics, means to be dedicated to say, like if you're living the consecrated life, it means that you are living totally devoted to Jesus Christ and to the Catholic Church and to whatever charism that you've been given. And you're consecrated to do that your whole life. You've made that decision. Being consecrated to Mary, there's a whole process that goes through, and it's usually with a priest, and you go through a process of consecration to Joseph too. Father Don Calloway has that book out that he came out in the year of St. Joseph, and he'd really be the guy to ask more about this than me. But it means that you are devoting yourself to Mary as the mother of the church and the mother of God and the queen of heaven and our spiritual mother. And we consecrate ourselves to live in a way that she did, a life of devotion to her son, to listen to her. And what does she say to us? Do whatever he tells you. That's her message to us. To pray the rosary, to do the things that foster a love and a devotion and a consecration to her and ultimately to her son. Everything about Mary is pointing to her son. That's what Mary is there. If you said to Mary, I'm consecrated to you, she'd say, do whatever if you're consecrated to me and you're devoted to me, that's great. Do whatever my son tells you. She's always going to point to him. So I hope that is a little bit of a help. I didn't say much about the official. I know there's an official act of consecration, but I think that that's the basis for it. I have not gone through that process, but I'm consecrated to Mary. I'm consecrated to Joseph because I'm going to devote my whole life to this.
Right. Well, and you know what? I mean, we should all turn to Mary at times, because if he was good enough for Jesus to learn from growing up, then why isn't she good enough for us to learn from while we're growing in our faith?
Yep. Just think about it. Mary taught the Word of God how to read the Word of God. Mary taught God how to pray to God. He's God in the flesh. He prayed to his Father, who is God. Just think, Mary is the one who, in his physical being, she's the one who taught him to do that, her and Joseph. And Joseph, imagine him too, and being consecrated to Joseph as well. Joseph was the father of Jesus, not genetically, not biologically, but it is correct. Even Mary says, why have you done this to your father and I? But just think, God is his father, but God gave up some of his own prerogatives as father and gave them to Joseph to raise his son.
John, thank you. Well, first of all, thank you for your continued prayers for my financial help, or for my financial health, I should say. But I appreciate that, John. And thank you for the call and the question. We're talking Mary. We 7 Sorrows of Mary, and is this month. September is the time when we remember Mary's compassion for us because of the sorrows that she's gone through. And if you have questions about the sorrows of Mary, you're welcome to call. Steve gave us 12 additional sorrows of Mary that are not the official sorrows, but her life is not foreign to us in her suffering. She has she's suffered as anyone has suffered. She's suffered as mothers suffer. She's suffered as disciples suffer. And if you'd like to ask any questions about Mary, but certainly about Mary's sorrows, you are welcome to call 888-318-7884. If you're not a Catholic, And if this Mary talk is maybe new to you or different to you, or maybe even something you're not too fond of, Steve Ray, just the guy to talk with. CatholicConvert.com is his website. And he's a Catholic convert. So your calls about Mary, welcome. Whatever your faith background, 888-318-7884.
Let us help you with your question today on Catholic Answers Live.
EWTN is everywhere. EWTN radio programming is provided free of charge to over 500 domestic and international AM and FM radio stations. It's a great teaching tool for Catholics and non-Catholics alike. For a complete list of EWTN AM and FM stations across America, visit EWTNradio.net. At the bottom of the page, click Affiliates. EWTN is the global Catholic network.
Who was the first Catholic in your family? Were they evangelized by a friend, a coworker, a stranger? Did you ever think that you could be that person that God uses to save a soul? And that soul could save their family, their grandchildren, and generations to come. At St. Paul Street Evangelization, a Catholic nonprofit, we train, equip, and mobilize Catholic disciples to do the urgent work of evangelization. Catholic Answers is supported in part by St. Paul Street Evangelization, streetevangelization.com.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. It's a big week here at Catholic Answers. In just 3 days, we kick off our 10th annual conference. All the apologists and others are streaming into town. Little by little, we'll get to see everybody, past and present. They'll be here. It's a very exciting time. It's also Shield Week at shop.catholic.com. What does that mean? It means we're highlighting all of the Catholic Answers Press products in one category: books, ebooks, MP3s, online courses, stickers, patches, everything we've got under that shield, the Catholic Answers Shield, more than 450 products in all. Go to the Shield Week category. When you check out, enter the promo code St. Michael. Boom, you save 30%. That's right, 30% savings this week with St. Michael. That's ST Michael. Just put ST Michael in, and you get that 30% savings all week when you check out at shop.catholic.com. Our guest is...
Can I say a few things about that?
Yes, please.
One of the things I like about you guys is not only do you do radio shows, but you also have all those tracks on your website.
Yeah.
That you can print out on every conceivable topic. I cannot say how many times that somebody's asked me a question, I go to your website and I find one of those tracts and I get the link and I give them the link. I said, I cannot say it better than Catholic Answers does. I'm directing people all the time. And your bookstore, your sales is... One of the nice things about it is that nobody can go wrong buying things from you. They don't have to ask if it's a good book or not, or a good tape or whatever. You guys only sell the best. I know, because you have my stuff there. You sell my movies, you have my books on there. And I highly recommend that everybody listening don't buy it from me, buy it from you guys, because when you buy from Catholic Answers, not only are you getting great stuff, but you're also making a donation to Catholic Answers. It's like making a donation to help your salary get increased and and to keep the website going. Yeah. But you guys have one of the best websites out there, and you have one of the best Catholic stores out there. So I just want to put a plug in.
Thank you, Steve. Thanks very much.
You're welcome.
You know what? On the line is Patrick in Cincinnati, Ohio, listening on Sacred Heart Radio. Let's go to Patrick. Patrick, you got a question for Steve about Mary?
Yes, thank you so much for taking my call. I work with a really nice guy, but he's a Reformed Baptist in accord with John MacArthur, who's kind of anti-Catholic. Yep. And anyway, we were discussing the Greek root of the word brothers, and also Mary's virginity, how she wasn't a virgin. But if Catholics could be taught how to fight this with the Greek derivative of these types of words, that would really be beneficial to us. So what exactly, how can I, counterpunch him in regards to this?
Well, the Greek word, when it says brothers of our Lord, is adelphos, and it means brother. But it's also, Sai is my brother. So when you have it, also Sai, it says, like Sai, the brother of Steve, or the Christian brother, is also adelphos. So it has to, the context has to be applied. So adelphos, in the Middle East, if a woman could not have milk to breastfeed her baby, she would find another woman to breastfeed her baby, and that baby would be the brother of any other baby that had milk from her. People, it's called a milk brother. People don't realize that. But any baby that drank from this woman is a brother, because it drank from the same milk source. So it is the word adelphos, and it means brother, but it can mean different things. A brother in the Lord, it can mean a brother, physical brother, it can mean a stepbrother. And they didn't have words. In Hebrew, there's no word for cousin. So the word brother is also used for cousin. For example, Abraham, his brother Lot, he refers to Lot, his brother, but he wasn't, he was his nephew. But they didn't have those kind of descriptions. Everybody was your brother. For example, when I was driving through Jordan with my friend, everywhere he went, he said, "It's my brother, that's my brother." I said, "Elias, how many brothers do you have?" He says, 15,000. We're a tribe. We're a Bedouin, Catholic Bedouin tribe. All of those 15,000 were his brothers, because you don't use the words cousin in those. They all lived in extended families. The bus driver that we use, the father and mother live on the first floor. The first-born son lives on the second floor with his kids. Next floor, second son with his kids. Third son with his kids. And all those kids play together all the time. They're not cousins, they're brothers. They all live together, they're brothers. So even the word can mean the cousins of someone. And because Mary was not, this is so many things you could say. At the cross, when Jesus said, "I'm going to give my mom to you, John," why did he say that? If Mary had another son, the second son would be in charge of mom. This is just the way it is in Jewish. To think of giving your mother to another guy when she has other sons would be unthinkable. The very fact that Jesus gave Mary to John shows that Mary had no other children. When they said that Mary is the mother of Jesus, it doesn't say ever Mary is the mother of Jesus, Joseph, Simon, Judas, and somebody else. And the people also then Matthew 1:25. This is another one you're going to hear probably, Patrick. It says that Joseph did not know Mary until the baby was born, as though, then all of a sudden they had relations. But the word "until" does not mean something that happened after, because in one place in the Bible it says that a woman had no children until the day she died. Well, she obviously didn't have any kids after she died. So to say that to use that word "until" to try and prove that Joseph did know Mary after is nonsense. And the whole passage of scripture, I could go also into John chapter 7, showing that they were Jesus' stepbrothers or they were his cousins. You know, there's an ancient tradition from the East that Joseph was married and was a widower and had other sons and daughters by a previous marriage. Therefore, those could be the brothers. They could be stepbrothers, not physical brothers of Jesus. So there's a lot of ways to think about it, but Protestants don't want to accept another view. They have like blinders on. They hate the Catholic Church and they hate everything we say. That's why they're called Protestants. And so anything we say, they're going to come and try to twist, put it all like the pendulum to swing over to the other side to make their point that way, and they'll not listen to you. So don't expect your friend to listen to you, because historically they don't.
Does that get at what you wanted, Patrick?
Yes, it does. Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, Patrick. God bless you.
For the call, if I can just get the name on line 2, I'll get line 2 on with Steve. Steve Ray is our guest. The number is 888-318-7884. We're talking about Mary this hour. Jimmy Akin will be our guest next hour. Okay. Well, Marty does not want to be on the air, but was in Boise, Idaho, and wanted to know if Mary is kind of an image or a type of humanity in its search for Jesus.
Yes, Mary is always an example, just like Abraham is as well. He's an example of a man who always says yes to Jesus. You know what he always said whenever God spoke to him is, "Here I am, Lord." Mary said the same thing, "Here I am, Lord. Be it done unto me according to your word." And not only is she an example or type of looking for Jesus, but also what you do with him when you find him. You obey him, you honor him, you love him, you say, "I'll do whatever you say." And so Mary is always an example, a type, a image of what we should be and how we should be following her son like she does. So yes, she is an example to all of humankind about how we should always be looking for Jesus. And she actually did literally look for him once, didn't she?
She did.
He was left behind in the temple, and she went looking for Jesus. Can you imagine, by the way, that's one of the traditional 7 sorrows. They traveled separately, men and women. And they still, most of the time in the Middle East, men and women do things separately now, and then they come together as husband and wife in the evenings. So men and women traveled separately. And when they got together at night, where's Jesus? I thought he was with you. No, I thought he was with you. Because younger boys would stay with their mother. When they got 12, 13, they become men, right? So she thought he was with Joseph because he was at that age where he could go either way, with a dad or with a mom. And they said, I thought he was with, I thought, oh no, we've lost the Son of God. But then they have to go to bed that night and sleep, worrying about this, and then get up in the morning and walk a whole day back on their own, wondering if he's okay. Can you imagine the stress? That's why she said, you caused this great distress to your father and I.
Yeah.
Boy, that would be grueling, huh? Anyway.
So thank you very much, Marty, for that call and for that question. The 7 Sorrows of Mary celebrated this month. We are, as Catholics, I think, Steve, always open to the criticism or vulnerable to the criticism that it's too much negativity. You know, like, why focus on this negative? So what is the point of focusing on Mary's sorrows?
Well, I think it gives us a great insight into her life and a great example for us. First of all, Mary is the Immaculate Conception. She's without sin. She's been chosen by God for the special. She is the chosen daughter of the Father. She is the mother of the Son. She is the spouse of the Holy Spirit. There's no other woman in all of human history that has that relationship to the Trinity. That's a unique relationship with the Trinity. So you'd think she'd be full of joy and exuberance and never have any sorrows. God would bless her with riches and happiness and so on. But it's not. She lived a very rugged, tough life. She watched her son die. She watched her husband die. She watched the innocents slaughter the innocent. She watched them die. She had to go 250 miles through the Sinai wilderness to get to Egypt. That would have taken, they traveled at the best, if you went fast, 20 miles a day. It's 250 miles from Bethlehem to Cairo, where they stayed. They said there was a Jewish community. I've been in the house of the Holy Family where they stayed in when they went to Egypt. And so she had to, just think she had to walk. There was no hotels. There were no Mercedes buses like I take my people in. She had to walk all that way with sand in her teeth and in her eyes. So she's an example to us of how to live, and that in this life, we're not going to have all down feather pillows. There's going to be sorrows. And we can't say, well, God, I gave my life to you. I consecrated, going back to that word we talked about. I consecrated my life to Mary and Jesus and Joseph. And why is this happening to me? Well, God says, this life is full of sorrow. Even Jesus, I wrote this down. Even Jesus, it says that it was fitting that he, by whom all things exist, bringing sons to glory, that the founder of their salvation be perfected through suffering. Even Jesus has said it was perfected through suffering. He, Son of God, he could have been living a high life. Although he was a son, he learned obedience from what he suffered. And we realize that through suffering oftentimes that's when we really learn obedience and submission to God. If we're fat and happy and rich and beautiful, we don't need God. Just look at a lot of people like that. They just don't, they're young and happy. But I'm 70 years old now, and I feel death already beginning to work in my body. I'm not invincible anymore. And all of a sudden I start realizing that, God is perfecting us and he's sanctifying us. And oftentimes we don't listen to him until there's suffering. Sometimes suffering is the way he has to get our attention.
Yeah, indeed.
And Mary, she's an example of that. She knew she was going to have, just think if God told us how we're going to suffer, that would be miserable. But he did tell her that a sword is going to pierce your soul also. She had to live with that her whole life. So anyway, the sorrows of Mary, I think they help us to enter into who she really is. I think they help us appreciate her more and to appreciate her son more and what it costs sometimes to follow her son.
Steve Ray has been our guest. Check out CatholicConvert.com. Coming up, Saints and Shrines of Italy, a pilgrimage, Poland, the land of modern saints. That'll include the Divine Mercy Sunday in the Divine Mercy Chapel. the 20th anniversary pilgrim, go down the Danube River. I mean, there's so many pilgrimages with Steve Ray. Check him out. And he's awful good company because people are always happy when they say, I think it's because of the Mercedes buses. I think I just figured it out. Steve, thanks. It's always a great pleasure to be with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Cy. I always love being with you, too.
Coming up, Jimmy Akin, Ask Me Anything on Catholic Answers Live. Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. This hour, Jimmy Akin with us for Ask Me Anything hour. I was going to say a bonus Ask Me Anything hour, but we've been doing a lot of Ask Me Anything hours, so I don't know at when we're into the bonus. I'm not sure, but Jimmy's here. If you've got a question, dial now because there's 3 lines open. 888-318-7884, the number. Ask Me Anything is for anyone. If you are Catholic, you're welcome. If you're not Catholic, you're welcome. And whatever your question is, you are welcome. Can I make you feel more welcome? If I could, I would. 888-318-7884. Jimmy Akin, senior apologist here at Catholic Answers, the author of The Bible is a Catholic Book and Daily Defense, 365 Days plus 1 to Becoming a Better Apologist, and also the proprietor of 2 podcasts now, Jimmy Akin's Mysterious World and the Jimmy Akin Podcast. Hi, Jimmy Akin.
Yeah. Howdy, Cy Kellett.
You busy enough?
Well, I've been a little too busy lately, but things are evening out a little bit.
Oh, all right. And so let me just ask you where people can get the Jimmy Akin Podcast, because I want to listen to you a few times before I start trying to do it, because then I'll get it right.
Well, right now it's at my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/Jimmy Akin. It's also going to be appearing on all the standard podcast apps, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, all those things. Last I checked, it wasn't yet on those, but they're working on that. But you can get it right now at youtube.com/Jimmy Akin. And it's the second episode just came out today. I'm going to have at least one episode coming out a week on Mondays, maybe more, but at least one on Mondays. And this week's is on If God Knows the Future, How Can We Have Free Will? And the answer is simpler than you might think, but a lot of folks wonder about that. So that's what we're talking about this time.
Check it out. Exactly where Jimmy mentioned. We'll talk a little bit as we go about Jimmy Akin's Mysterious World, because a new episode drops each Friday. As of now, still 3 lines open. So this is a perfect time. It's very hard to get on the line when Jimmy's here. So this is a good time to get your call in. Now 2 lines open. 888-318-7884. We'll start with John in Minnesota watching on YouTube. Hello, John. Go ahead with your question for Jimmy.
Hi, Jimmy. Hey, thanks for taking the call. And forgive me if you've answered this question before, but my question is regarding marriage, the sacrament of marriage. And well, first, have you seen the movie Castaway, 20 years old or so, with Tom Hanks?
I'm aware of the movie, but I have not seen it. I just know that he talks to a beach ball or something.
Right.
Nice summary.
All right. So the quick and dirty is, let's just say a scenario. Okay, young Catholic couple, they get married, totally valid Catholic marriage, right? No funny business or no room for annulment or anything. He goes on a trip. His plane goes down in the ocean, presumed dead. 1 in a million, though, he survives, right? He gets to be stranded on this island, and then years go by. So she's a young woman, the wife was, and the only thing I could get online as an answer to this is that if a body is not present, she has to get permission from her bishop to get remarried. But let's say she falls in love, gets that permission, remarries, has some children, and then, like I said, years go by. Okay, the original husband comes back into the picture. What happens? And practically what happens, and then also theologically, what was going on with her quote-unquote new marriage, and, questions about sin, and if was grace present when they consummated that, So that's kind of my question.
Okay, so there's a whole bunch of issues there, but I'll deal with them expeditiously. So part of, obviously, it's going to be, assuming it's the new marriage is a happy one, it's going to be traumatic when husband number 1 shows up. But in terms of what happens practically, one of 2 things. Now, you said, as you stipulated as part of the question, that there are no grounds for an annulment. In reality, if the woman is happy with her new husband, it's possible that she could pursue an annulment just to take a look at that first marriage and see if she was actually bound to husband number 1 or not. That would be a little unusual, but we're already dealing with, since they would be legally married already in the eyes of civil law, but it's possible that could happen. On the other hand, suppose they look at it and say, yeah, we don't see any grounds for annulment here. Well, that means she's still bound to her first husband. And so she can't legitimately be having conjugal relations with husband number 2. She could hypothetically divorce husband number 2 and resume married life with husband number 1, or she could live with husband number 2 as brother and sister. In terms of what happened in terms of sin and grace and so forth, well, since she believed in good conscience that husband number 1 was dead, and since husband number 2 believed in good conscience that husband number 1 was dead, they would have been objectively committing adultery when they had conjugal relations, but they would not be held accountable for that by God, because they didn't know that that was the moral character of the act that they were performing. So it would have been objectively sinful, but they wouldn't have been culpable for that sin. And therefore, grace would continue to flow in their lives when they received the sacraments and things like that. In terms of the children that she had with husband number 2, those children are not really affected by this. People might wonder, are they legitimate? And the truth is, legitimacy is just a legal category. Even if you're illegitimate, that doesn't affect your status with God. You know, even if kids are born deliberately illegitimate by their parents, that doesn't put a stain on the child. You know, just because your parents messed up, that doesn't mean you've got a problem with God. Those kids are just fine as they are spiritually. And it turns out in this situation, they would also be legitimate in terms of the law, because what the law provides is that children will be legitimate if they're born to an invalid union, as long as at least one of the parties believed the union was valid. And so since both the wife and husband number 2 thought this was a valid union, then the children would be reckoned as legally legitimate.
John, I hope that got to everything that you wanted to get to. An elaborate set of questions to start with. Thank you for starting us off, John. Jimmy, before we go to the break, maybe you could just tell me what's dropping this week on Friday on Jimmy Akin's Mysterious World.
Well, last Friday we had part 2 of our look at the Zodiac Killer, and this Friday we're looking at another mystery, but fortunately no one dies this time. It's called the Toynbee Tiles. Back in the 1990s, a gentleman in Philadelphia started noticing these strange tiles in the middle of public streets, and they said things like Toynbee idea, as in Kubrick's 2001 movie, Resurrect Dead on Planet Jupiter, among other things. And it turned out there were hundreds of these tiles in all kinds of cities across the U.S. and even in some other countries. And so he went on a hunt to try to crack the mystery of the Toynbee tiles. And we're going to be telling you all about what he found.
Oh, check it out on Jimmy Akin's Mysterious World, mysterious.fm. Check it out on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. That brings us to the break. And all the lines are full, so lots more calls to come. It's Ask Me Anything with Jimmy Akin on Catholic Answers Live.
There's only one Catholic Answers Live. Are you a coffee drinker? If so, you can now enjoy a coffee roasted to perfection by the Carmelite monks of Wyoming. Delicious Mystic Monk coffee is roasted and prepared by monks in a hidden cloistered monastery and is available in over 25 varieties. All Mystic Monk coffees are works of perfection and labors of love. For more information on how to purchase Mystic Monk coffee, visit mysticmonkcoffee.com. That's mysticmonkcoffee.com.
Wings is a weekly newsletter that's packed with program information, features, and updates of all that's going on at EWTN. To sign up, go to EWTN.com, click subscribe, enter your name and email address, and you'll start getting your wings every week. Get your wings today. It's the weekly newsletter from EWTN, the Global Catholic Network.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. Ask Me Anything, Jimmy Akin, our guest. And up next is Marie in Houston, Texas, listening on our app, the Catholic Answers Live app. Marie, thanks for downloading it onto your phone. Go ahead with your question for Jimmy.
Thank you. Hi, Jimmy Akin. I am really confused about which direction to use as my voting choice. I heard the Holy Father's response and to both candidates, and he said, well, like the person that asked him the question said, one of them is not so nice to migrants and the other one is not so nice to unborn babies. And then the Holy Father went on to say that, well, you got to choose the lesser of the two evils. Killing babies is worse. Of course, the Bible also says take care of the widows and the orphans and the foreigners. And and then, I'm talking to I have a friend who's going to vote for Harris, and she said, well, she's not for abortion. It's just that she wants women to have a choice. And
Okay,
so
Marie, I
I'm
need to
thinking in my
stop
mind,
you. Marie, I need to stop you for a second. I never talk candidates or parties. So if you ask me a question that's in the form of the principles that are involved, I can answer it. But I'm not gonna answer a question that names candidates or names political parties. So I'll talk principle, but not individuals.
Okay, let me ask you then the principle. I know that God gives us a free will. And so my friend says that, government limiting women's choice is wrong. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, okay, God wants people to have a free will. And then I'm thinking, okay, the Bible also says be kind to the foreigners and people that need help. So I am not sure which is the most important.
Okay. Why don't I take a swing at it and we'll see if it helps. So the first thing I'd mention is your friend's argument that women should have a right to choose to kill children is nonsense. That would justify killing anybody. God does give us a free will, but that doesn't mean society should allow homicide. And if we have homicide laws to protect the lives of born people, we need to have homicide laws to protect the lives of unborn people. So we shouldn't be killing anybody, born or unborn. That's a specious argument. Your friend her reasoning is fundamentally flawed on this point. In terms of the issues of immigration and abortion, a standard Catholic moral theology approach would be to distinguish between two issues. The first issue is denying an immigrant access to a territory they want to enter versus killing somebody, which is worse. Well, people have a right to life. They don't actually have a right to immigrate. It's being generous of the state to allow immigrants in, and there's a limit to how many immigrants a state can reasonably allow in. That's something Pope Francis himself has acknowledged on 60 Minutes, that, the church's teaching on immigration is not just fling the borders wide open and let everyone in the world come in. So if you're comparing the issue of letting people or denying someone entry into a particular territory versus killing that person, or killing a person is obviously worse. The right to life is an absolute right, and unless you forfeit it by, say, murdering somebody. But the right to life is much more fundamental than a right to migrate, which isn't really a right at all. So the issue of abortion considered in the abstract vastly outweighs the issue of immigration considered in the abstract. But then there's a second issue that has to be thought through, which is, what are the practical effects in the current political environment going to be of voting one way or another? Now, before Roe v. Wade was abolished, in America, we had a fundamental block on the ability to do very much regarding abortion. There was no way that we could make significant progress on abortion. I mean, we could nibble around the edges a little bit, but we couldn't really deal with the issue head on as long as Roe v. Wade was there. Now that Roe v. Wade has fallen, the situation has changed, and and so consequently, the issue has at this point devolved on the individual states. And so now we have a state by state education battle to educate people on the need to have pro-life laws, and a state by state legislative battle to try to improve the legal protections for unborn people. What that means, if you're asking about the presidential race, is the role of the president, at least at the moment, is diminished. And so you have to think a little more hypothetically about, well, what will happen depending on what candidate gets into office on the abortion issue. Will a particular presidential candidate support some form of abortion, or will they try to take it out of the hands of the states by creating a national law or a constitutional amendment or something like that? And you got to think about what impact is the president going to realistically have on abortion going forward, and then factor that in as part of your calculation. When it comes to immigration, you got to think about that too. How many immigrants can the U.S. have come in reasonably? What requirements, and this is something the Catechism talks about, should they be subject to? And would it in fact be better to, rather than bringing them into the U.S., would it be better to help fix their own countries so that they don't want to leave? You know, to my mind, it's better to fix where people came from so that they're happy where they are and don't need to migrate. I know I'd much rather be able to stay where I am in my own home than have to migrate somewhere else. So, so immigration is a much more complex issue, and you need to think about the impacts on the immigrants, on people back in their home countries, and on people here in the U.S. And you need to factor all that into your calculation. Then there are other pressing issues, because even though we're not currently in World War III, we have had nuclear saber rattling from Vladimir Putin. And hypothetically, we could get into a major war in the next presidency. Hypothetically, it could be a nuclear war, which would kill loads of people, and therefore could kill loads of people. And therefore, you need to think about, okay, that issue too, because that's another life issue. And say, okay, which candidate do I think would be better at preserving life overall? Not just on abortion, but on other issues too, like nuclear war. And from out of all that, you got to make a decision. One thing I liked about what Pope Francis said, and by the way, he didn't name the candidates, but he said, choose the lesser of two evils. You know, unfortunately, there are no perfect candidates that we can pick. And it was nice to have a reminder from the pontiff that we are not responsible for every bad thing a candidate does. We need to do what we can do, which means using our vote to promote the most good and avoid the most evil. But we shouldn't be holding candidates to if you're not absolutely pristine on Catholic doctrine, I cannot vote for you. That will only allow the forces of evil to win. So make your best determination and vote accordingly.
Marie, thank you very much. I hope that was helpful. It's certainly timely, given the time of and season we are in here in the U.S. But on we go. Lines full. We'll go to Daniel in Dallas, Texas, watching on YouTube. Daniel, thank you for waiting. Go ahead with your question for Jimmy.
Hi, Jimmy. So I know the distinction between material and formal heresy, but my question is about espousing heresy through a canonical delict, meaning you're accused through a formal legal trial, notoriety in law, or notoriety in fact, meaning you can become a heretic before being legally pronounced. So those two distinctions, my question is about Pope Francis or any of the bishops. So when Pope Francis made a comment about making Coptic martyrs as saints, I know he never officially taught it, but he talked about even though the church teaches that there are no martyrs who are outside of the church. Or when Joe Biden said in an interview that the Holy Father said he can continue receiving communion despite his public endorsement of abortion.
Daniel, I'm not sure what you're asking here.
Yeah. Does this mean that the church, does this mean that Pope Francis, even though he hasn't officially taught heresy, does this mean that if he believes these things, that he could be considered a heretic by notoriety and fact?
No. And none of the things you mentioned are even close to being heresy. People, especially online, have a dramatically inaccurate understanding of what heresy is that is vastly overexpanded and from what the actual crime is. In order to commit heresy in any form, what you have to do is teach something that is contrary to an infallibly defined dogma. That is, a dogma is something that the church has infallibly defined to be divinely revealed, not just to be true, but to be divinely revealed. And in neither of the cases did you mention is there a dogma in question. The church acknowledges that non-Catholics can be saved if they're not members of the Catholic Church through no fault of their own, and therefore these Coptic individuals could be in heaven. They could be saints. And now, actually, he didn't. My memory is he didn't speak of proclaiming them as saints, but including them in a martyrology to commemorate them, which is not the same thing. But even if he wanted to infallibly define that they were saints, or attempt to, even if he wanted to canonize them, that would mean that according to this canonization, they're in heaven, and that is not impossible. So we are not dealing with a heresy here. In terms of someone receiving communion who shouldn't, well, the church's law presently allows people to receive communion who shouldn't. It's in the first place, it's generally up to the individual to make a determination of are they in mortal sin or not. And some people, frankly, are in mortal sin, but that's not publicly known, and they go ahead and receive, and the church allows that. Also, a priest can be in a position to where he knows the person is in mortal sin. That person may have come to him right before Mass and confessed to him and gave an invalid confession, and the priest denied them absolution. But because of the seal of confession, the priest cannot, in that circumstance, deny them communion. It is simply not a dogma that a person who is in a state of mortal sin may not receive communion under any circumstances. They should not receive under any circumstances, but it is not an infallibly defined teaching of the church that it is impossible for them to receive. And that actually goes all the way back to the New Testament in 1 Corinthians, where St. Paul is warning the Corinthians. He's saying, listen, some of you are not receiving worthily, and you shouldn't, but he nevertheless is not putting the responsibility on each priest to make that determination. And certainly priests are not required to violate the seal. So even if an individual was told by the Pope, and that's a big if because this was a private conversation, and politicians, one truth about politicians is they all tell falsehoods. They're all liars. So even if a politician was told something about it's okay for you to go ahead and receive communion, that's not a denial of a dogma. That's a practical matter. It is not a matter of teaching, and it doesn't contradict the teaching that if someone is in mortal sin, then they should not receive communion. Furthermore, you can have people who support objectively evil policies who may themselves be in good conscience because they can have defective consciences and not realize the moral character of their act. So in no case that you've mentioned do we have anything like a heresy on the table. In order for someone to commit the canonical crime or delict of heresy, they need to, after baptism, obstinately, which requires a canonical warning typically, refuse to believe a dogma and that refusal to believe a dogma must be publicly manifested. If nobody perceives it, they haven't committed the crime of heresy. And so that's what's required. And I hope that helps you out with your question.
Daniel, thank you for the call. Lots more calls to come. As a matter of fact, every single line full at the moment. Jimmy Akin is our guest. Jimmy, author of many things, including The Bible is a Catholic Book and A Daily Defense, and the proprietor of Jimmy Akin's Mysterious World. Also the proprietor of the new podcast, the Jimmy Akin Podcast. And soon to be here with us in California for the big conference that's coming up. If you'd like to get 30% off right now at shop.catholic.com, it's Shield Week. Just use the promo code St. Michael, just ST Michael when you check out, and receive 30% off on your order. Right back with more Ask Me Anything with Jimmy Akin on Catholic Answers Live.
Deepen your connection to the Church's holy days and seasons while you draw on the wisdom of the Church Fathers. Feasts of Our Fathers, the new book from Mike Aquilina and Adam Lucas, is a treasury of history, prayers, insights, and lessons that will bring you closer to the earliest of Catholic traditions. Take your prayer life and your solidarity with the Church, past and present, to a new level. Order your copy of Feasts of Our Fathers today at shop.catholic.com.
We hope that one of the things that we communicate here at Catholic Answers Live is that our Catholic faith allows us to be fully serious about all the problems we encounter in the church and in the world, but it also lets us have light hearts and maybe even mix in a bit of fun. And that is exactly what our good friend Joe Heschmeyer does in his popular podcast, Shameless Popery. You should check it out at shamelessjoe.com. Joe's got a deep grasp of the faith, morals, the teachings of the church, all that, but he's also got a witty conversational style. He entertains and he informs, but you will leave equipped to better answer the most common challenges, misconceptions, and questions about the Catholic faith. He's got insightful guests, he does on-air debates, and he takes a close look into all the things that you want to know about as a Catholic living today. You'll walk away knowledgeable and filled with joy. Look for Joe on his YouTube channel. Check him out at shamelessjoe.com or wherever you get your podcasts. And if you like what you hear, become a patron.
Our Lord needs articulate defenders of the truth to spread the joy of the Catholic faith. Catholic Answers monthly giving club, Society 315, helps you fulfill the call in 1 Peter 3:15 to always be prepared to make a defense for the hope that is in you. For as little as $10 a month, you'll help Catholics grow in faith, bring lapsed Catholics home, and lead non-Catholics to the truth. Go to casociety315.com and join today.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. Jimmy Akin is our guest, and it's Ask Me Anything, and every single line full. Off to Carrie in Utah now. Carrie, welcome. Go ahead with your question for Jimmy.
Hi, yes, thank you. Several years ago, I was visiting Italy, and we did a Vatican tour, and which was all great. But my point is, in the gift shop, I bought a rosary at the Vatican gift shop, and in where Mary would be, the medallion of Mary, there is a skull, and it looks like almost like a crossbone underneath.
Okay.
And I didn't notice it when I bought it, but I was rather shocked, when I took it out of the little box that, they put it in with the clear lid. And I got it out, and I was like, what is this? I didn't notice it, and I was wondering if you had any explanation for what that means.
Yeah, so that's really cool. You got a pirate rosary. And so what you need to do is after each Hail Mary, pray for us sinners now and at the hour of our death. After each Hail Mary, you need to say, "Arr." Okay, and that's all you need to do, and you'll be saying the pirate rosary. How does that sound?
I don't think that's right.
I don't think it's right either. I think you are exactly right, Carrie. That is an unacceptable answer.
That is not right. So, okay, here's the real story. The skull and crossbones, that should be what you're looking at. And the skull and crossbones is what's known as a memento mori. Memento mori is a phrase that means remember death. And so Catholics down through the centuries have provided themselves with various reminders of the fact that one day we're all going to die and we're going to stand before, the judgment seat of God, and we need to be prepared for that. And so essentially the function of the skull and crossbones on this rosary is it's to remind us that that's going to happen one day. So it's a memento mori. It may also be connected with Adam, because if you look at some paintings of the crucifixion, for example, there will be a skull and crossbones at the foot of the cross. And the idea is that's Adam's skull and bones, and this shows the triumph of Christ's victory over death, including the death that comes to us because of Adam's sin. And so I'd have to look at the rosary to see, or read about it to see if it's specifically envisioning this as being Adam's skull and bones, but it could be, because the rosary does involve celebrating the mysteries of Christ's life, death, and resurrection, and thus his triumph over sin and death.
Okay. Thank
But
you.
how you-
I just.
Yeah, no
Go
problem.
ahead.
But how you interpret it, because we put meaning in symbols. If you want to interpret it as a pirate rosary, you could do that. I'm just saying.
No, not a big fan of pirates, but
Okay.
I just wanted to. I don't know. I just was really shocked to see that, and I never heard of it, and I didn't know if I was like cursed or something, or
No, they're not going to
but
be selling
it's
cursed
just
rosaries in the Vatican.
I didn't think so, but with God, anything is possible. So I didn't know if like this was a sign or something. But thank you for your explanation.
No
I
problem.
appreciate it.
Gary, thank you very
All
much.
right.
Thank you for the call.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Let's go to Greenville, Texas. Rick is listening on the Guadalupe Radio Network in Greenville, Texas. Welcome, Rick. Go ahead with your question for Jimmy.
Hi, thank you so much for taking my call. I believe it was a previous guest that spoke about Mary being an ever virgin, and I think it was Matthew 1:25 that said Joseph did not know her until she had her firstborn.
Yes.
Or until she had Jesus. Can you explain more about that? How did you? Because I guess I'm Catholic, but the Protestants say, oh, no, when he knew her, then she's no longer a virgin.
Okay, well, so I didn't hear what the previous guest said, so I don't know exactly what they said and what they didn't say, but I can give you a basic answer. So the basic answer is the term until, both in Greek, which is the language we have Matthew in, and in English, does not imply a reversal of circumstance. So sometimes the word until means this thing continued up until this point, period. And it doesn't say or imply anything about what happened afterwards. In other cases, it implies it means that this thing happened up to this point, and then there was a reversal of circumstance. So the word until is ambiguous. It can be either one. It can imply that there was a change, or it cannot imply that there was a change. So the word itself is not going to answer that question for you. To give you just a couple of examples, in the Greek Septuagint, which is the Greek version of the Old Testament, it talks about how David's wife Michal, because she scorned David's attempt to honor the Lord, it says she had no children until the day she died. And it uses the same Greek phrase, Greek term there. And obviously David's wife Michal didn't start having children after she died. So this is a clear case where it means she didn't have children up to the day she died, and there's no reversal of circumstance after that. So it's real clear. And I just said all that in English, and it's natural. If I say she didn't have any children until the day she died, you would understand what I meant. So this is true of the English word until also. There are a variety of different passages like that show this effect in both the Old Testament and the New Testament. St. Jerome had a discussion of this. He had a kind of controversy with a guy named Helvidius, who was denying Mary's perpetual virginity, and he pointed all this out about the Greek usage. I've got a copy of what he wrote on my website, jimmyakin.com, in the file library. If you go to jimmyakin.com and you go into the file library and you go to the section on Mary and then you look for Jerome against Helvidius, you can read Jerome's discussion of this for yourself. So given that the word is, and it's actually a two-word phrase in Greek, but given that the term is ambiguous and does not tell us by itself whether or not there's a reversal of circumstance, you have to look at context. What else do we know about Mary and her life? And at that point, all of the standard arguments in favor of Mary's perpetual virginity come into the picture. Like in Luke, where she says, I know not man, so how am I going to get pregnant? Well, obviously, she knew the facts of life, and if she was planning a normal sexual marriage, she would know how she's going to get pregnant. Similarly, in John 19, when Jesus is crucified, he entrusts the care of Mary to the beloved disciple, which would make absolutely no sense if she had other children, because it should be them who care for her. And then we have early Christian documents like the 2nd century infancy gospel of James, also known as the Proto-Evangelium of James, which makes it real clear that, there were Christians at this time who, even this early, believed she remained perpetually a virgin. So all of the regular evidence that we have for Mary's perpetual virginity supplies the context to figure out, does until in Matthew 1:25 imply reversal of circumstance or not? And all this other evidence implies that it doesn't.
Thanks, Rick. I'm going to leave it there and keep getting calls on with Jimmy. There are lines open. Lines have opened up all of a sudden. 888-318-7884. It's Ask Me Anything. You're welcome to ask Jimmy whatever you'd like. Mark is in St. Louis, Missouri, watching on YouTube. Mark, glad you're here. Go ahead with your question for Jimmy.
Yeah, Jimmy, in your debate with James White, you talked about Sola Fide and Pope Benedict. You just talk more about that, and that's it.
Okay. Well, if you're asking, so back in 2008, when Pope Benedict was given a series of audiences on St. Paul, in one of the audiences, he talked about how Luther's formula, justification by faith alone, is true, as long as you're not excluding from that faith the concept of love, or supernatural love, charity. And so, as St. Paul himself says in Galatians 5, in Christ neither circumcision nor uncircumcision counts for anything. What counts is faith working through love. And for people who follow this issue closely, this is not a surprise. This has always been the Catholic understanding of things. Now, because of the Protestant Reformation and their extensive use of the formula by faith alone, people divvied up into tribes and started treating that as a sine qua non of Protestantism. And if you use that phrase, you must disagree with Catholic teaching. And they frankly misrepresented what the church teaches. But when you study the matter, and I have a whole book about this called The Drama of Salvation, where I talk about this. I also have a 20 Answers booklet called 20 Answers, Faith and Works, where I talk about this. But the formula faith alone is not alien to Catholic teaching. In fact, it has been used by Catholic thinkers down through the ages, including people like St. Thomas Aquinas, who's a doctor of the church. And what the Council of Trent did was not reject the formula faith alone. What it did was reject a misunderstanding of the formula faith alone. It infallibly defined that what it rejected infallibly was saying that man is justified by faith alone if you mean that all you need is intellectual faith. And And so if you mean all you need to do is just believe Christian teachings and you have a purely intellectual faith, that'll justify you. Well, no, it won't. And so that's, the church's position. But most Protestants don't believe that either. They think you need a more robust faith than mere intellectual belief. So what else do you need? What needs to be part of it? Well, one view that you have in some Protestant circles is you need more than intellectual faith. You need what they call fiducial faith. Fiducia means trust. And so you need to, in addition to have intellectual belief in the gospel, you need to trust God for your salvation. And they'll say that's what saves you. The problem is St. Paul denies that in 1 Corinthians 13, where he's talking about the virtue of love. And he says, look, even if I had faith strong enough to move mountains, and you really got to trust God pretty strongly. So this is clearly fiducial faith we're talking about in order to move mountains. But if I didn't have love, it wouldn't benefit me at all. And so fiducial faith is not the right kind of faith either. The right kind of faith, as Paul makes clear in 1 Corinthians 13 and in Galatians 5, is faith that incorporates love, because he says love believes all things and hopes all things. So if you have supernatural love or charity, that incorporates faith and it incorporates trust or hope. And so you have all three theological virtues. And then that's what he says counts in Christ in Galatians 5. So yeah, if you have faith working through love, you are in a state of grace. Now that doesn't deny the role of the sacraments or anything like that, because if you have supernatural love of God, you're going to want to do what God says. And God says, go get baptized. So you're going to go get baptized and he'll give you his grace through the baptism. But if you have faith working through love, then you are in a state of grace. You are in a state of justification.
Mark, thank you. That does bring us to the break. Jimmy Akin is our guest. It's Ask Me Anything. More calls to come. We can get you in the queue if you want to dial now, because we have a couple lines open. 888-318-7884.
It's all about the truth. Catholic Answers Live.
Underwriting for Catholic Answers Live is provided by Real Estate for Life. Real Estate for Life connects home buyers and sellers to real estate agents while supporting pro-life organizations. On the web at realestateforlife.org.
The wisdom of Mother Angelica.
You know, I have never seen women who want to be equal absolutely degrading themselves. And yet the media degrades your nature, your beauty as a woman, your goodness. Let us pray at some point our dear Lord touches their hearts.
For more information on Mother Angelica, visit Religious Catalog at EWTNRC.com.
The Catechism defines evangelization as the proclamation of Christ and his gospel by word and the testimony of life. But what does that look like in real life? It looks like St. Paul Street Evangelists out in the public square, sharing the good news. We're a Catholic nonprofit that starts conversations by handing out free sacramentals. Then we employ our method of listen, befriend, proclaim, and invite. Catholic Answers is supported in part by St. Paul Street Evangelization. Visit streetevangelization.com to learn more.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. Jimmy Akin, our guest, and it's an Ask Me Anything. We'll go to Lafayette, Louisiana now, where Adam is listening on 90.5 FM. Adam, welcome. Go ahead with your question for Jimmy.
Hey, Jimmy, honored to talk to you. I was at Mass a while back, and the priest was encouraging everybody at the church who was present to go to communion, even if they hadn't been in a while, because he believed that it was important for everybody to receive our Lord. And then he said if anybody wasn't worthy to just make like an act of contrition in their heart and then to seek confession afterwards, but still encouraged everyone that was there to go to communion. And since then we have actually found another parish just because that rubbed me the wrong way. And I'm wondering if I'm overreacting or if that was erroneous advice.
It was erroneous advice. It is possible in limited circumstances for individuals to make an act of perfect contrition with the intention of going to confession later and then receiving communion. But for the laity to do that, there have to be grave circumstances, like, you're not going to be able to receive for another month if you don't do this, or you're in danger of dying, or something like that. A priest does not have the authorization to just make the determination, I think everyone needs to go to communion and make an act of contrition. That is way beyond what he has the ability to authorize. So that was erroneous advice. And frankly, I would, if you know who the priest is, I would report that to the bishop, because that's serious pastoral malpractice.
Okay, thank you.
All
No
right.
problem.
Adam, thank you very much. Well, I'm going to tell you what, calls keep dropping, so I'm going to say go ahead and call if you've got a question. 888-318-7884 is the number. It's Ask Me Anything with Jimmy Akin. I am going to go to line 5. Let's go to Michael in Omaha, Nebraska. Michael, glad you called. Go ahead with your question for Jimmy.
Yes, I was fallen away Catholic, and when I went through reconciliation about 23 years ago, the first priest through our class did not give me absolution, and basically said, I should talk to a psychologist, or because I had 30 years worth of sins, and I was I just kind of broke down, and I went back to my parish and met my priest there, and he did give me absolution. So I went through with the communion and everything and that. So I'm just wondering, is there any, I'm not sure what to ask, but am I absolved, or?
Well, if the second priest absolved you, then yeah, you're absolved.
Okay. I mean, it just kind of threw me when I went through the 6 months of classes, and then this one priest, he was kind of a young priest, but probably more of a ideological person. But and since then, when we've had like the communal absolutions, like during the holiday season, Lent and Advent and that he has given me absolution then. But I was just curious on this first time, does that have any weight to it, since my parish priest went ahead and gave me absolution, or?
Yeah, so just to reiterate, if you've been absolved, then you've been absolved. Don't worry about it beyond that. It doesn't matter what some guy did the first time. If you are subsequently absolved, then you are absolved. So put your mind at rest and do not worry about it. I do want to clarify one thing, though. When you said communal reconciliation, I assume you're talking about penance services where you have one or more priests and people go to them for individual confession and get absolved. Assuming that's what you mean, well, then those are just additional cases where you got absolved. But you don't need to worry about this. If you've been absolved, then you've been absolved. It's a simple tautology.
Michael, thank you very much for the call. I do hope that was helpful to you. Now, all of a sudden, everybody's on the line. Let's go to San Antonio, Texas. Renee in San Antonio.
Quick, before they drop.
Go ahead Go ahead with your question for Jimmy, Renee.
Hey, all right. Appreciate y'all taking my call. So this is my question is, I guess, purgatory. You have like this old idea of where you could do things for a number of days, and now we kind of have a different, maybe not a different, but just like I'll say different, a different understanding where it's more of just kind of like a purification, and it's sort of not necessarily temporal or a place or anything like that. Can we still hold to that traditional, more ancient view of or I guess I don't even know if it is really that a traditional view, but that older view of it being a place with those days and things like that? I don't know if that makes sense.
So I assume, hang on, I assume the days you're talking about are the ones that used to be printed on indulgences. So it would say this is a 14-day indulgence, or this is a 500-day indulgence. And those are gone. Those are no longer part of church practice. The reason they're gone is because people misunderstood what they were. They were never saying, oh, you'll get out of purgatory 14 days earlier, or you'll get out of purgatory 500 days earlier. That's what people understood them to mean, but that's not what they meant. What they meant is this is equivalent to the spiritual value of doing 14 days of penance here on earth, or doing 500 days of penance here on earth. How that gets applied to souls in purgatory is something we have to leave to God, because the earthly church does not have authority over the church in purgatory. We have to leave that to God. We apply things like indulgences to the holy souls in purgatory by way of prayer. So that's why the church removed those days. These days, all indulgences are either partial, which means the effect is going to be proportional to the devotion with which you do the indulgence, or they're plenary. But if you want to think purgatory is a special place and that time exists there, absolutely you can believe that. The church is, you can even believe, like some of the medievals did, that there's physical fire there. Now that the church has definitely moved away from that understanding of, physical fire affecting non-physical souls, but it hadn't condemned it. So you can have a very traditional understanding of purgatory, but you can also have an understanding of purgatory that is more flexible than that.
Renee, I'm going to leave it there because, as I said, everybody called now. So I'm going to try to get some more on. Robert's in Pennsylvania. Robert, go ahead with your question for Jimmy.
Hi. Thank you for taking the call. I have a question regarding some of the statements that Jesus has made regarding the Father. He said repeatedly that he and the Father are one, okay? And also he said that everything that the Father knows, he knows, basically. Why then, when Jesus is asked about the end times, he doesn't know? He said only the Father knows. He does not know. Why would that be?
So the first thing to say is he's not being asked about the end times. In fact, this gets directly into the subject of the talk that I'm going to be giving this Saturday at the Catholic Answers Conference. People misunderstand. It's about Jesus's most famous, most misunderstood prophecy, which is the Olivet Discourse that he gives on the Mount of Olives, which is where this statement occurs. And people think the Olivet Discourse is about the end of the world, and spoiler warning, but it ain't. It is about the destruction of the temple, which we know happened in AD 70. And Jesus says that it'll happen within a generation, which it did. But he says, as to the specific day and hour, that's something the Father knows, but the angels don't know it, and not even the Son knows it. Well, obviously, since the Son is both God and man, that presents us with the answer to our question. In his divine intellect, Jesus is omniscient, and therefore in his divine intellect, he did know it. But in his human intellect, he said, I didn't. And so this is something that's discussed in the Catechism of the Catholic Church. I'm also going to discuss it in my talk. But in the Catechism of the Catholic Church, it said that Jesus, in his human intellect, had the fullness of the plans that he had come to reveal, but what he admitted to not knowing, he elsewhere indicated he had not been sent to reveal it. So it's like he had a download from his divine intellect of, here's all the stuff that you're going to reveal, but it didn't include stuff he wasn't going to reveal. And so he wasn't going to reveal the specific day and time that the temple would be destroyed. And so he didn't have that information. And that's why he can say, in his human intellect, that's why he can say the Son doesn't know. And the Catechism, this is like paragraph, I think around 600, but it's in the section on the human knowledge of Christ. And if you look at the footnote to where it says this, it specifically cites Mark 13:32. Which is the passage where Jesus mentions this in Mark's version of the Olivet Discourse.
Robert, thank you. Thanks to everybody who called. As you can hear, that's the music playing, so we are done. Jimmy, thank you for being here with us on a Monday afternoon. Appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure.
And we'll see you at the conference in a few days.
Sounds good.
And that'll do it for us. But as I said, we're going to be here with you all week with new programs each day. So one of them, Thursday, will come to you live from the conference. So that'll do it for us for today. We'll see you tomorrow. God willing, right here on Catholic Answers Live.